Hi everyone, today is a really exciting video. I'm going to show you how to create cinematic / professional looking lighting on your smartphone films for next to no money whatsoever. For this, I'm creating an interior daytime shot. So the bulk of the light will be coming from the windows because we've got bright sunlight today. So I'll be able to create something really special for you guys. And I think you'll be astounded at the difference between the before and after we've added all of the effects and lighting tips and techniques. Just a quick reminder, I have started a Buy Me a Coffee page, which is like Patreon, where you can donate as little as $3 to my channel to help me keep making these videos for you. So if it's something you're interested in, I'll be grateful for that. But if you just want to see these videos, then thank you. So let's get into it. Hi guys, so this is the framing we're looking at. The first thing I wanted to do is to create a sense of depth to the image. So rather than having myself flat against the wall behind me here, where the plant and the lamp is, I wanted to bring myself forward away from it by about 1 foot, 2 feet. If you've got someone on a sofa, for example, in a living room, if you have the space to bring it forward, that's always going to be a good thing. Creating any kind of sense of depth within your image is going to make it a lot more dynamic and a lot more interesting for the audience to watch as well. And given that sensors on a phone are so small, it's a really good technique to use to trick the audience's eyes into thinking they're seeing a bit more depth than perhaps they are. Something else that's really important to look out for is when you're setting up your actor or your talent, make sure there's nothing sticking out of their head. So here you can see the tree. If I crouch down slightly, it's sticking out of my head and it just looks a bit ridiculous. So make sure you move things like that so that there's no distractions. If we actually just move that, actually the lamp's in a good position as it is. It's leaning because it's a bit of a dodgy lamp, but we'll work with that. That's fine. So it looks a bit cleaner, the image now. We haven't got this tree sticking out. It looks nice. Now the second thing we're going to tackle is the highlights. As you can see, the windows we've got here, huge amount of blown out highlights, and in the window here as well. We want to tackle that and make sure that we get those highlights nice and under control. One of the first signs of quite an amateur or low budget film is blown out highlights all over the place. It can be a stylized thing. So if you watch like Walking Dead, something like that, then they actually use blown out windows all the time to create a sense of, you know, an apocalyptic kind of feel that anything could be out there, anything dangerous could be out there as well. And it's on the edge kind of feel. But for the most part, we want to control these horrible, horrible highlights. And so we can see everything outside. Now you can use shears as well. So that controls the highlights a bit more. So, you know, like the kind of curtains that are a bit see-through, but we don't have those today. So we're going to work around that. And the first thing we're going to do to control these highlights is use ND filters, neutral density filters. So I'm using the Moondog Labs fixed ND filters. I've got a 2-stop ND filter and a 3-stop ND filter. So we're going to see which one of these work best with the highlights that we're getting blown out in the windows here. So this is the 2-stop ND filter. As you can see, the buildings here are actually pretty well exposed now. And just here as well, getting nice and clear. But the skies are still really blown out. So we're going to try the ND3 now and see what difference that makes. If this works well with just the ND3, we won't need to stack them. Perfect, beautiful. You've got really nice blue skies. You could argue it's a slight bit of blown out here, but it actually looks really good. So I'm going to stick with the ND3 stop. So we're going to fix the 3-stop ND onto my clip-on. Okay, so now we've got control of the highlights on the windows here. As I say, you still get a tiny bit of overexposure here, but it's pretty good. We're happy with that. And what we're going to do now is we're actually going to use a diffuser so we can soften the light. So as you can see, we've got this kind of harsh shadow here, which can work for direct sunlight, but here, because it's a lot of shade and stuff, it kind of doesn't quite work for me. So what we're going to do is soften this light up on the edges and the shadows and those harsh lines that we're getting here by using a diffuser. So where I get that from is my 5-in-1 reflector, which I have to say is one of the best things you can buy for any films that you're making. So this is my 5-in-1 reflector. This is actually the diffusion filter that's in the middle of it once you take all the kind of casing off of it. And this is going to soften that light right up. So I'm just going to place it to the window here and make sure that it stays out of sight. And you can see already how much it's softened that light. So we're not getting those horrible, horrible shadows now. And it's a really nice, soft light. And you can see that the shadows that were here have completely gone now, and you've got those harsh lines, they completely disappeared. And this diffusion filter's done that, it softens the light, because if you have harsh light coming through, you're going to get overexposure on the face, it's just going to not look too good. But now we've got this, it softens the light right up. So now we've done the highlights, we've controlled the softness of the light as well by making it look a lot more glamorous and kind of Hollywoody like with this diffusion filter, so the light isn't just beaming straight through in this harsh light on my face. What we're going to do next is just fill in the shadows slightly. Now I wanted to shoot into the shadow side, but what we're getting now is it's a little bit too dark. So we're just going to get a white balance, which is part of the 5-in-1 reflector casing. And we're going to put that just to my side here, just out of shot. So we're going to get that nice kind of balance on this side as well. So we're not filling it in, but we're just kind of filling some light in there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use the white balance sheet that I've attached to the close rail here, and we're going to inch it towards me just outside of the camera. So we're going to just lighten up this dark side just a little bit, because if we actually lighten it too much, it's going to be light on both sides, which is going to flatten the image. So we don't want that. We want to create layers with the light, which is going to create a real dynamic feel and cinematic feel to your shot. So we're going to stop making this from looking like an okay smartphone film to making it like a high-end kind of film, full stop. So we're just going to inch that white balance sheet just a little bit closer, a little bit closer. I think that's just about right. So that works for me. We've still got a darker side here, but what we're doing now, we're creating layers of light. So we've got the bright light coming from the windows here, which we've now exposed. You see the nice blue skies against the clouds. The light coming through. We've got a little bit of harsh light here, but I think that's fine. It's just a little bit there. It kind of works because it's a very sunny day. But we soften the light here with the diffusion filter. So we've got all the main light coming here through as our key light. We've got a bit of shadowing here on the frames of the windows. Got a bit more light here, then shadow on the curtains, then light on the face, then dark on the face. And that's creating so many different layers of lighting. It's going to make it look much more cinematic and professional. Now we've got the white balance where we want it to, creating all these layers of light. So now we've got everything in place, almost. What we're going to look now is at practical lights. So a practical light is essentially when you're watching a film, TV, or anything like that, it's a light source that's on screen that should be there. So a lamp like this would be there, but having a practical light is a good way to enter more light. And also what we're going to do with this is we're going to create a backlight, which then finishes off our 3-point lighting. Now 3-point lighting is where you've got a key light here, you've got a little bit of fill here for the shadows, and you've got a backlight, which is going to separate your subject from the background. And this is what we're going to do now. We're going to turn the lamp on, and it's broad daylight, so it's not giving us that much light. But what we can do is cheat it. You can see that the light bulb's on, but what we're going to do is we're going to cheat it by using an external light for that. So I'm going to use this little table that I've got here. I'm going to set it up just behind me. I'm going to put a light there and use that as a motivational light. And motivational light is when you're using a light that's on set or a light that you know is there, so like sunlight, and you're adding in more light to emphasize that sunlight, or a lamp. So if I move this table behind me, and I've got a mini tripod here, which I'm going to attach my Falcon Eyes F7 RGB light, awesome little light. And you can do this with any LED light that's bi-color, so you can change the color temperature. Because if you've got warmer light, like that bulb, that's not necessarily going to work. If you've got a light and you set it to more of a white light, you can see the color temperature difference between the household bulb and your LED light. So you want to change that color temperature to match. So if you look at that light bulb here, whilst I change this, we're going to get that nice and warm, so it looks as close to that. Yeah, so it's not too warm, it's a much warmer light there. And what we're going to do now is we're going to put it behind us. So we're going to put it on this table, and it's still out of sight, remember. I'm going to bring that up slightly. And what that's going to do, as you can see, is creating a backlight on the head. So what that does is it separates you. You've got light here, shadow here, and you've got this backlight here lighting you. Ideally, I think we'd want it maybe a bit higher than that. That's much better, yeah. So now what we've got is we've got a little bit of light here, and that's going to separate you from the background, and it also links you to that bulb. It tricks you into thinking that the light's coming from the bulb. In a darker scene, it would be a lot more obvious, but I think here just a nice little subtle touch from the bulb, and using that as motivational light to then put in the LED light is going to give you that backlight here, so you can really get an emphasis on separating you from the background and using lighting to create a shallow depth of field. That is really good, especially if you're using a smartphone for films. So now we've seen what we can do with just natural light, a diffusion filter, the white balance sheet that comes with a 5-in-1 reflector, which I must say I really highly recommend you get a 5-in-1 reflector. It is so useful. We've also used a practical lamp behind us, which isn't giving off that much light, but it gives us a reason to put another light just out of shot here, so we can then put more light onto the back of the head, creating that 3-point lighting. Okay, so this is the full setup. That's where I was sitting, obviously. Got the windows. This is the diffusion filter. If I pan back or pull back for you, you can see how that softened that harsh light coming through the window there. The camera was just here, and on the camera we used the ND filter. That's a 3-stop ND from Moondog Labs. Really great filter, as I say, can't recommend those enough. This is the white balance that we used. So if I go behind the chair, you can see on the close rail, just pegged on, really low budget, opposite the softening diffuser. We've got the lamp here with a nice warm kind of colour light, and we match that with our LED light just out of shot. And as long as it's out of shot, it really doesn't matter how it looks like. This looks like a bit of a shambles, doesn't it? But the way the shot's turned out, it actually looks really great. So just use whatever you have to the best of your abilities. You can also use white bed sheets, things like that. If you've got like a spare bit of white wood or cardboard, something like that, you can use that, plastic sheeting, whatever it is. And you can use curtains, bed sheets for diffusion, whatever you need. And this is the setup of how I got my final shot. I hope this has been really helpful for you. We're going to do a before and after shot here as well, so you can see exactly how we started and exactly how we finished after doing this lighting. So we've gone from something very basic and very kind of amateur looking really with the blown out highlights and the blocking to something that looks really professional that you'd get in any film, not just a smartphone film, and for very little money. With a 5:1 reflector, an LED light, the practical light, we've created something that looks really professional. Now I want you all to know, just because you're using a smartphone doesn't mean that you have to compromise on making the quality of your smartphone films any lower than what a normal film would be. Now we might not be able to get exactly the same shallow depth of field, it might not always be the same sort of colour variations unless you've got a 10-bit phone now, but we can create really lovely, beautiful shots with whatever we're using. And I'm using Filmmaker Pro as well, so get an app for yourself so you can control things as well, make it much easier for yourself. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. It's been a lot of fun making it. Let me know if you've got any tips as well down below in the comment section. Let me know if you enjoyed it down in the comment section. If you enjoyed this and want to see more of this kind of stuff, let me know as well. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. I will see you on the next one. Thank you for joining me on this first lighting class tutorial, interior daylight. Thank you. See you on the next one.